Good morning. Happy Sunday. Thank you, Fred, for asking me to speak. I do want you to know that I didn't know I was going to speak until 20 minutes ago when I walked in. But this is what we do in AA. When you are asked to do something, you say yes. And so after throwing up in the bathroom, I came back out and said, yes, I'll do it. I love AA. It has changed my life considerably in so many ways. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, I am a new person. I have basically evolved out of a cocoon into someone that I like. I like me today. I am confident. I am teachable. I do the steps with my sponsor. I call her every day, and I sponsor women, and that's huge in this program. I started out at an early age knowing what alcoholism was all about. I was born into a family. I had a sister. Her name was Renee. We were a year and a half apart. And my father drank daily. And my mother kept asking him, please stop drinking, or I will leave you. He was a jealous, angry, lost soul. And he was unable to stop drinking. He did not seek AA. And so they were separated. And my sister and I were in the home of my grandparents, along with my cousins, who were 7 and 9. And I was 2, and my sister was 3. And my father came over one day to speak to my mother. It was the 21st of December, and his Cadillac was full of toys for us for Christmas. And so he came bearing gifts, and he was pleading for her to come home. And she said, no, I'm not doing that. You haven't changed. I don't want to bring my 2 little girls up in a house where there was alcohol. And so when she turned away to go up the stairs, he had told my sister Renee to go into the kitchen and get an apple. And when Ruby, my mother, turned to go up the stairs, he shot her 5 times in the back. So that was my first experience of what alcoholism was about. And we drug her body, along with my 2 cousins, into the living room. And Renee and I got into the bathroom and we got on a stool, and we got the Band-Aids out of the cabinet. And we're putting Band-Aids on her body, trying to save her. But she died in front of us. And that was difficult. My uncle, Bill, he was a Lieutenant Bill Satterthwaite, and he was the first one on the scene because Rodney left, and he went and told Ruby's sister what he did, and she couldn't believe it. So she called the police, and my uncle came, and he was the first one on the scene. And then they called my grandfather, Ruby's father, and he was working at Burlington Northern Railroad, and he came and saw his daughter, beautiful daughter, laying on the floor with us, laying next to her. And my grandfather would go on to drink daily because of what he experienced, and because he lost his daughter. And my grandfather drank until he died. And that was the saddest thing, to come over to the house as we got older and see him in the basement just drowning in alcoholism. but he was loving, he was caring. Every time he saw us, he cried. It brought back memories for him, and he was unable to handle the emotional pain of what had happened in his house. Because he felt like because he left the house that day to go to work, that's why she was dead. But that's not true. But he went to his grave bearing that pain and that guilt. So from there, we were placed into the home of my grandparents for about 9 months. We were put up for adoption, but no one wanted both of us. It was just too much to handle two children coming into a family that probably already had children. And the court knew that what we had been through was so traumatic, he did not want to separate us. So finally, this family agreed to take us in, and they already had a daughter named Debbie. And so this father as well was an alcoholic. So I felt like God didn't hand me very good cards, but it's just the luck of the draw that he wouldn't, both of us, someone wanted both of us. So this family moved us out of Lincoln into Walnut, Iowa. And that was extremely hard because I knew they were my real family. And I yearned for my real family. I wanted their hugs, their touch, their familiarity, because these people were strangers to me. And so for the longest time, I would not call them mom and dad. I was defiant. My sister was defiant. She was angry. She would yell, "You're not my mother, you're not my father, leave me alone." And this, I'm calling him father because he was my father from that day forward. He never adopted us. And my sister believed that the reason he didn't adopt us is because he wanted the money from the state to drink on. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but he certainly did drink. And my sister, God rest her soul, passed away November of last year. And she went to her grave with that anger and that resentment towards him. And I eventually learned through this program to forgive. And I know that he was a sick person. So after that, we stayed in Walnut, Iowa till 4th grade, and then we moved to Perry, Iowa, and we lived there till 5th grade. And we were so poor. This family had another child. Her name was Melanie. And we were so poor, we couldn't even afford a crib for her. She had to sleep in the dresser drawer. So I remember one time I was going in there, we were asked to clean, we had duties, and I accidentally closed the dresser drawer. I forgot that she was in there. So I kind of got my butt chewed on that one. But it's just a funny story we talk about as we're older. And Melanie's the sister that recently had a stroke, which turned into a massive brain bleed. And they had to cut out a section of her skull and put it inside of her stomach so it would remain viable. And with all the prayers from my AA family and the family's prayers, she is healing, and she is now in Madonna rehab. So thank God I'm not losing my baby sister. This program changes you. It allows you to pray for other people and not just yourself. So being poor, my father was selling potato chips out of Frito-Lay truck. And I remember that's what we would get for birthdays. We'd get to go out and get into the truck and choose a bag of potato chips. And, that was a big deal for us. We moved to Lincoln, Nebraska, because my mother found out about Al-Anon. And she said, there is hope out there somewhere. And we need to find it for this family. It's falling apart. So we moved to Lincoln, and she got into AA. My father would eventually get into AA, but first, my mom got into Al-Anon, and she started an Al-Anon meeting at 37th and F Street in the Presbyterian church that we belong to. And that grew and grew and grew. And she had an Al-Anon support group, Al-Anon support group, and we would go to that. But yet I never learned that I didn't want to drink. Because at 14, I was seeing someone. I had a boyfriend at 14. I couldn't get the emotional support I needed from this father. And so I dated early, and he gave me my first drink with some seniors. And I loved it. I loved the way it felt as it went down my throat and into my stomach, and sense of ease came, and I wasn't scared to be around people anymore. And I could just relax. I was so tense and I was so scared, and I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I was tall and thin, and I wasn't popular, and so I just wanted to belong. And with this group of friends, they were popular. So I became popular through alcohol. And then the drugs came, and I like those as well, because you put alcohol with drugs and you got double fun, right? I smoked pot and drank with this person, and I would come home and my eyes would be red, and my sister would know that I had smoked pot, and she would tell on me, and I would basically be grounded almost the entire high school years. Because that was more important. I didn't care if you grounded me. I want to do this. I want to feel better. I want to be with the popular people. So after I graduated, I was forced to move out of the house because I wasn't following the rules. I had a job, I had a car. Before my two older sisters, I was independent. I was very good at saving money. I would have 4 or 5 checks just laying down in my bedroom, and my dad would say, put that in the bank, put that in the bank. And so because of my defiance, he basically kicked me out. So I moved to Denver, Colorado, and lived with my aunt and uncle and 2 cousins. And I had my own bedroom and my own bathroom, and they had a swimming pool. And I just felt like I was in a whole nother world of a different type of fun that I didn't grow up with. And I wasn't of legal age to drink here in Lincoln, but in Colorado I was, because I think it was 19 in Colorado. So my aunt and I would dress up in disco clothes, and we would go out, and she would get me in the bars, and we would drink hard. And so drinking always made me a better dancer, and I liked how that felt. So eventually I would meet my first husband, and he had a construction business, and he was doing very well, and I was allowed to just be a stay-at-home nothing, basically. I mean, we didn't have children, and I did take care of the pool and hot tub and the garden, that I grew. Well, I was living the life, I thought. And I would do the vacuuming and the cleaning and the washing of his clothes. And a few times I started seeing these little vials in his pants. And I didn't know what it was, and I would just take them out and set them on top of the wash machine, young and naive. And he would say it's his medicine. And I said, okay. And then I would be vacuuming, and behind the couches, I would find rolls of $100 bills. And I thought, this is weird. And I said, why am I finding all this money in the house? And he said, well, I'm making such good money in the business that I can't report it. So I'm not putting it in a bank. I'm just going to hide it here, leave it here. So I never touched the money. I never took any of the money. And then eventually, the friends that we were hanging out, they were taking the medicine. So I said, why are they taking medicine? And finally he came clean and said, well, this is cocaine. You should try it. And I did. And I liked it. Then I loved it. Then I craved it. Then I needed it. Then I couldn't imagine life without it. And I wasn't drinking drinks. I was drinking out of a bottle. So that went on for 5 years. And we were getting more and more things, big boats and cars. And one day he came home and he said, I bought a plane. And I said, why did you buy a plane? An airplane? Yeah, it's a twin-engine Cessna. And I said, okay, what's that about? And he said, well, I'm going to start dealing. And I said, okay, this is kind of scary. But he said, look, then we'll have all the cocaine we want. We won't have to pay for it. So, being the good little wife I was and addict that I was, I said, okay. And that got pretty serious. We were in with the cartel. And there were times after I had our daughter, Natalie, that I was holding her at someone's house and people crashed into the door and they held a gun to my daughter's head. And I said, oh, no, you don't. And I turned my body and I protected my daughter. And then the gun was at my head. And I knew the situation was not good. So I pleaded with him after that to stop dealing. I said, let's just get out of this. So he said he would, and we ended up moving to Arizona, and we were clean. Like the drinking stopped, the drugging stopped, and we were clean for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, I found the vials, I found the money, and here we were, back into it again. And I left him, and 2 weeks after I left him, he got caught by the feds and he went to prison. So this person I've only talked to twice since then. And it's just how it needed to be. I had to get away. I had to protect my daughter. And when you do things like that, you know it's the right thing, regardless. You're breaking up a family, but the dynamics were not something I was willing to live with anymore. I didn't want to die. I didn't want my daughter to die. I wanted safety. And I moved back to Lincoln. Wait a minute. I ended up meeting a person that helped me move out of my home with my daughter. And that person was my boss at work. I worked at Sun City West Golf Course, fell in love with golf, and this person taught me how to play golf. And I thought there were other things out there besides drugs and alcohol. And I ended up moving in with this person who saved me, because when you have someone that saves you, that has to be the right person, right? So that was just my thinking. And he drank. And he drank a lot. And he stayed after golf course tournaments, and he was the head pro, and he drank. And I would be sitting home with my daughter alone, and I thought, this is ridiculous. So I sought out some friends, and they had crack. And I liked crack, and it was cheaper than cocaine. So he didn't know this, but I was doing crack with friends, and I had a babysitter. And then I got him to do crack. Here he is, this reputable golf course head person. And I ruined his life with that. And we both became very, very thin and kind of sickly. I got pneumonia and double pneumonia. And I decided, I think I need to leave this person. I came home one day and there was another woman's swimsuit laying over the hot tub. I said, okay, you're cheating on me, I'll cheat on you. So I did. You know, that was just my thinking. And finally, I decided I needed to move out. But before I could move out on my own, I came home and all of my clothing, all of my daughter's things were laying on the front lawn. I said, okay, you went first. And I moved in with a friend of mine from the golf course. And he loved my daughter. He was very kind to her. It was just a friendship relationship. But he said, you got to get off the crack. And I said, I will try. So from crack, I just started drinking more and more, because I just was switching up addictions. It's what we do. And finally, my dealer came over one day and he said, I'm going to help you. I'm going to stop dealing myself so I can help you. And that he was a gift from God. To have your dealer lay next to you and hold you through the DTs and get you straight was the greatest gift I was given at that time in my life. And my friend was taking care of my daughter so that I could come clean. And I have never touched anything white again in my life, unless it's frosting. I love me some frosting. Because I remember when I met Ed Grubbs in this program, and he had asked me, so what was your favorite drug, Star? That's my middle name, and he would always call me Star. And I said, anything white. Anything white I loved. And along with that came alcohol, because that's the only way I could come down. So it felt so good to move back to Lincoln, my home, clean and sober for a while, and not know where to find anything white. To this day, I have no idea. I don't want to know. I have never developed a friendship with anyone that does anything white. So that is a blessing. It was hard to come home and leave this person that I that I had lived with and felt safe with, but my family's here. All the rest of my family and friends are here. And I tried to quit drinking, but I could not. It just gave me that sense of ease that I needed. And I became a person that drank alone at home. I wanted to be invited to parties only for the sake of being invited. I would never go. I wanted to drink alone at home by myself because I was afraid of what I would say and do at a party. So I got a job at Hidden Valley Golf Course, and we were allowed to drink as much as we wanted. Now, my girlfriend, she drank while she was driving the bev cart around, and I did not because I was there to make money. And I wanted a house, and I wanted to take care of my daughter, and I wanted to raise her with the things that I did not have. So I worked hard. I was able to get a house, and I lived pretty good until one day I met a Latvian, and I decided he was the one I was going to marry. And he eventually asked me. I really didn't want to, but he had this group of friends that I wanted to belong to. It was all about wanting to belong since I was little and not knowing how or what to do. And so I married a Latvian, and 6 months after I married him, I divorced him because he would not stop drinking. And I had. And I thought our marriage, I could change him. Well, Latvians drink a lot, and they love Crown Royal. So I was sorry because I felt like he was my prince. And I was willing to give up my prince because I had decided that drinking was not for me. After I drank so much, I didn't even make our wedding rehearsal. I was drunk and sick in my bed at home, and I had him lying and say that I had the flu. Then my time of drinking continued on after that because I felt like an awful person for hurting him, because I know I did, and I hurt his whole family. But that's what I did. You know, if I want something, I'm going to get it, and I don't care if it hurts you. I was selfish, self-centered, and I wanted what I wanted. I was sober for 30 days, not coming to AA, but I had decided I needed to stop drinking, and it was hard, but I did it. And I went out to Colorado where my best friend lived, and she was so proud of me. And she said, "Jude, I think you need to keep going with that." So here's my best friend. We used to drink together, but she knew I couldn't handle my drinking and that it wasn't getting me anywhere in life. And so after the 30 days came November 23rd. It was my birthday. It was a Saturday. And I invited all my friends from the golf course to come and celebrate my birthday at Cappy's Bar and Grill. And they were asking me, "Are you going to drink? Are you going to drink?" And I didn't want to tell them no because I thought they won't come to my party if I tell them I'm not going to drink. So we went to the bar, and we had a big, huge, long table, probably 25 people. And I said, "I'll just dance. And if I just dance, I won't think about drinking." So I was out on the dance floor for the entire set. And then I came back, and there was 5 Captain Morgan and Cokes lined up in front of where I sat. And that was my favorite drink. That's the drink that did it. Because I could drink Captain Morgan because it had that Coke caffeine in it, and that could keep me going, where other stuff just kind of made me tired. And they were glistening. I can still see them. They had limes hanging over the side and this ice, and I was thirsty, and they looked so refreshing. And I thought, I'll just have one. Well, one became the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth, and then that was not enough. So I was up at the bar, and I was telling everybody, it's my birthday, it's my birthday. Shots for all my friends at that table over there. So then came the tequila, and then came the hot damn, because I had no control. And that night, I became so deathly ill. And I was throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. And I'm the type of person, everywhere I went, when I drank, I was going to take one or two drinks. I had a bigger purse then. Now my purse is small, amazing. But I had a bigger purse, and I would put 2 drinks in that purse so I could walk out the door. I would have my arm kind of protecting. The drinks would be on this side in the purse, protecting my drinks so they wouldn't spill. And bye, thank you, to the bouncer. And I needed those. I needed those drinks to get home. And I needed them once I got home to go to bed. Well, I got carried into my house that night by my friend, and he left. And I remember my girlfriend saying, "Goodbye, Jude, I'll talk to you tomorrow." And I got sick, and I got so sick. I knew that I had alcohol poisoning because I was throwing up so violently. Well, my 14-year-old son was in his bedroom, and he had to go to school that next day, but I needed him, and I was screaming for him, and he came into the bedroom, and he helped me back and forth, basically crawling to the bathroom, throwing up, and it went on for over 24 hours. And finally he said, "Mom, I called Dad. He's going to take me to school. I don't know what to do for you, but I am scared." So when my son left, I felt this emptiness inside my whole body, like I was nothing. I was just a piece of a person, and I had nothing to give anyone. I had failed. 30 days sober, and I had failed. What is left in my life? And my son hunted with his father, and I knew where his guns were. And the only thing I could think about for the longest time was, just take your life. Just do it. Just be done. It'll be easier. You put your son through hell, and he didn't deserve it, and you can't stop drinking. And I laid there and I thought, no, you're the adult. You already went through this with your mother and your father, who, I forgot to say, committed suicide 2 days after he shot my mother, while he was in a drunken stupor in a farmhouse in Friend, Nebraska. He knew the cops were coming, and he wasn't going to face that. So he took his life, shot himself in the head, and I thought, you are not going to leave that legacy to your son, who has done nothing but love you. And I had a friend in AA And I thought, you can call him. You should call him. And I did. And that phone call, I just felt like there was hope when I did that. And he said, Judy, you're going to be okay. Just go to this meeting, 52nd and R Street. And that was my first one. The meeting in the basement was my second one of the meeting place. So near and dear to my heart. And it was a speaker meeting. And I walked in and there were so many people. And I thought, what are all these people doing here? I'm scared. And somebody came up to me and gave me a cup of coffee, just like this. And I didn't drink coffee. But I held that coffee like they had given me the keys to the kingdom. I instantly felt calm. I felt like I'm going to be okay. Because maybe I'm finding a new kind of friendship and a new way of living. And I sat down and I held this cup of coffee. And I sat next to a woman named Jana. And she won't care if I say her name. And she was laughing. And I thought, God, why are all these people laughing? This is not comfortable. And it was a speaker meeting. And a gentleman got up and told his story. And it was my story in so many ways. And I thought to myself, you're as bad as him. You need to be here. And that man's story saved my life and changed my story from that day forward. Because we went around the room and people were saying their name. I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic. And it came to me and my throat just closed up. And I said, I'm Judy and I'm an alcoholic. I could not get the word out. Not having used the word. You know, it was a big word to me and kind of a scary word. But once I said it, I felt this sense of ease and comfort. And I knew that this could possibly be the next phase of my life. So I got a sponsor. I went to 90 meetings in 90 days. I threw myself in AA. I carried this around with me everywhere. And when I had an extra hour, an extra half hour, an extra 15 minutes, I'm at Hidden Valley Golf Course. I'm selling alcohol. But I'm staying sober because of these meetings. And there are so many available today. There's literally no excuse for not making one. So after going to 90 meetings in 90 days, I called my sponsor. I was ecstatic and I was so proud of myself. And I wanted her to just shower me with all these flowery words. And she said to me, keep going. The best words I could have ever heard. Because if she would have been flowery and like, oh, yeah, great job, Judy, that wouldn't have affected me like keep going did. Because that told me I had a problem, she knew it, and she wanted me to be serious about getting sober and staying sober. So this sponsor helped me work the steps, 4, 5, and 6, most difficult. But you got to get that out. You got to get those resentments out. You got to get that stuff that's deep, deep down in your soul that's killing you and hurting you and causing you to go back out and drink, emote, share. Sit next to someone that you trust and tell them everything. It changes you from the inside out. and 9, when it came to step 9, and I had to apologize to my son, he looked at me with the kindest, beautiful blue eyes, and he said, "Mom, you did the best you could." And sometimes that's all we can do. Even in sobriety, we're still just doing the best we can. We're sick people trying to get better, not trying to be perfect. We're trying to change our thinking, our thought patterns, how we treat others, our character defects. We still have them, but they're not as glaring. And we're not making poor choices. Because for me, if I have anything big in my life, my sponsor's going to hear it first. I'm not going to make that choice till she knows what this girl is about to do, what this alcoholic addict is about to do. And she's never been wrong. And there are days when I don't feel okay, when I hurt inside, when my thought process goes back to painful memories. And she just says, "You're going to be okay. Tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's a new day." And that helps me so much. And you've heard, just be where your hands are. Just be. Sometimes we just have to be. Be teachable, be willing, have courage, and you will grow. And a fellowship will grow up around you, and that feeling of isolation will leave you. Today I sponsor women, and that has been one of the greatest gifts. I love my women so much. And they help me as much as I help them. They bring me new life. And it's good to remember where we came from. We can never forget that. I owe my life to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I owe my life to all of you. Thank you.